Welcome, everybody, to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin, host of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. And you could find me over at rbwins.com. And you could find this guy that's with me today, like he is every Monday afternoon, over at docsports.com. And his name is Mr. Doug Upstone from the great state of Arizona, where it's about 115 degrees today.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. I mean, like there's literally nobody outside. Okay, everything's melting. Plants are dying in front of your eyes. Because even some of the a lot of plants, even though they're used to the territory, when it gets this hot, boy, it's rough. So you got lots of water and stuff like that. So to try and keep them going, but hey, you know what? This is not new. Okay, for this, and we've had a remarkable, I would say, what is it, July? I'd say we've had a remarkable 7 months of either lots of rain previously and cooler weather for the most part. So, hey, you know what? This is part of the deal, Ross. Just like, living where you live in Rochester.
Yeah, in July. July is when it's supposed to be hot, but we don't get anywhere near those temperatures.
Oh, no.
We're in the 80s, but the problem here, Doug, is, I don't know if you've been reading about it, is these Canadian wildfires. You're used to it in the state of California up your way, but I don't know if you get affected by that at all. But we are. And it reminds me of the Journey song where the lyric goes, playing in a smoke-filled room. It's like, you go outside and that's what you feel like. It's like, okay, well, who started a fire here? You just smell the ash. It's terrible. So not good for the air quality, not good for sinuses at this time of year. But you know what? It's still beautiful outside. We got a lot to be thankful for, Doug. And we're going to be talking some Major League Baseball today. And we're going to be covering games on July the 4th. And actually, we're going to be covering the game between the Cubs and the Brewers, and also the Tampa Bay Rays and the Philadelphia Phillies. Doug will be looking at some great matchups. But before we get to that, Doug, I'm an advocate that I just don't subscribe to the theory of taking money line favorites of minus 151 or greater. I know I approached that number at 150 a couple weeks ago with the Atlanta Braves on a free pick, but it's very rare I cross the 140 or 40 barrier. And I know I'm seeing a disturbing trend where more and more handicappers, half of their plays seem to be within this parameter. And I just, forewarn you folks, unless you're dealing with somebody that really knows what they're doing, and not only they have to hit a high percentage of this. And I'll cover this. Why? I mean, MLB favorites, Major League Baseball money line favorites of minus 151 or greater this year. 335 and 212, 61.2%. Real good, right? Not so fast, because $100 bettors that played those money line or Major League Baseball money line favorites of minus 151 or greater are down for the season $7,222. Now imagine if you were a dime player, we'd be talking $72,000 plus. And then if you even raise the bar higher, and for those of you who think they're brilliant by giving out a minus 200 favor or more because you're just trying to win a game and sell a guy on the phone, or buyer beware. Okay. Money line favorites of minus 200 or greater in Major League Baseball this season, 148 and 82. That's 64.3%. That's great in football. It's even great in baseball, but not around this betting line parameter. When you're looking at $100 bettors who have placed a bet to win $100 on all money line favorites of minus 200 or greater in Major League Baseball this season, they're down over $4,000. So I rest my case, and back to you, my friend.
Yeah, and this year, I believe, I could be wrong on this, I believe that's both those numbers are lower than usual. Okay, lower. I'm talking about win percentage in both instances. I know that I remember this was a few weeks ago, but I know that to your point about especially the 200s, that that they were significantly lower than in past. I mean, because even win percentage, I mean, a minus 200 favorite should win 66.6% of the time, and we're not at that number just overall. And then this year, Um, I guess it might not be more than ever, but boy, we've seen a lot of 300s this year also on favorites. Now, you want to take 300 underdogs? Well, go ahead, from that standpoint. But, you'll be lucky. You'll be lucky to get one out of four.
Right. If
Okay.
you're taking a 300 underdog, Doug, wouldn't you advise them to at least look at +1.5 at plus money?
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, at least give yourself a more of a fighting chance for sure, from that standpoint. But anyways, so the point of it, it's lower than what it's been. Like I say, it's stabilized, I think, from earlier in the year. You and I talked about this. I mean, I have changed my way of thinking, and I will go up to like -170, which is what I used to do in the second half of the season. And the reason that I started doing that is because there was just so many lines that were, let's just say, up to that number, especially in the first 6 weeks of this season. I mean, it was rampant. I mean, you were literally, unless you were doing totals, in many cases, you were left with four choices, sometimes five. Okay, with how the lines were. Now, it has since settled down. Even the teams that were expected, that were doing so well, have slowed down some. So, the baseball as a whole, everything's just kind of lowered again. So from that standpoint, let's just say it's less necessary. You do have more options now.
Yeah, and I want to clarify. I know that some of my constituents that I respect a lot cross that barrier, but we're not talking about average people, okay? We're talking about guys who do this for a living, and they don't do it with redundancy. They don't do it with frequency. They do it when they spot a game where they really feel like, let's just not take a chance on the run line. I'm so confident in this game that I'll lay 170. I know Jesse goes there. You do on occasion. Me and Sean don't like to. And again, I'm not criticizing anybody who does, but those of you out there that are betting on your own and think you're too smart to take our advice, just be careful, because when you get into that money line parameter, it's the quickest way to go broke. And it's a false sense of security, because you'll, on average, you're winning 6 out of 10 picks. Okay. But when you do the math in the money you're losing as opposed to winning, if it's not a very good business move, is what I'm saying. So in any
you got to win. Just go ahead.
Yeah. In any event, Doug, finish your thought and then go into the topic that you want to cover.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, because if you're going to go that direction, you just have to know that you got to win 70 to 75% to show a profit. So if you feel that you can do that, and you can hit 70 to 75%, depending on what the number is, well, then you can take a shot at it. But just so you know, if it doesn't happen, that is going to be your outcome is going to be what Ross is talking about. So from that standpoint, all right. So I did some homework over the weekend. I've done this. I don't know how long I've done it for. A long time. Long time Bill James fan. Kind of when Bill James came up with his book in the early '80s, kind of changed it actually did change how baseball was looked at. Just as a general rule. And I was always a big fan. Okay, right from that standpoint. Long before I was actually doing any. I was betting my own picks, but I wasn't handicapping anything. So, and Ross will correct me on this. I'm going to say this wrong, but the Pythagorean, I think I'm saying that wrong, but the win formula or theorem that he has, that he put together. Pythagorean theorem. I still got to learn how to say that right. It's not a word you come up with to use very often for me anyways. But anyway, so what I did is I went through every team, played 81 games. And so I took and what this is basically has to do with is that you take the run differential, okay, I should say you take the run scored and divide it by the run scored plus the runs allowed, and then you get a percentage. In this case, you divide it by 81 games, and you come up with a percentage, and then you can compare it to see how teams are doing, if they're based on that, if they're playing above or below, okay, how they should be, okay, for the season. So among the things, for example, and one of the question I'm going to ask Ross, I'm not going to talk about these teams, but one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is the Kansas City Royals. Now the Royals really stink, okay, this year. We know that at the midway point, 23-58 was the record. Here's the thing, though, that I thought was interesting. Based on the run differential, or based on this theory, is that they should actually have won 7 more games. They should be 32-49. Now they're still terrible, okay, but it just that's really struck me as to saying they're actually better, that or they're underperforming to what what the real differential is. And oftentimes, for those that don't know, one of the key things this has to do with bullpens, in terms of either overperforming or underperforming. And so that's that one, that's one stands out. And another one that definitely stood out to me, which I knew going in was going to be the case, Miami. And Ross and I have talked about Miami all year, at the midway point, 48-30, or yeah, 47-34, excuse me, 47-34. And the best run differential they have had this year was going into the Atlanta game. So last Friday, it was 0. That's the best that they had all year. So in theory, their record, despite their record at 47-34, they should be 40-41 if you go along with how the run differential aspect should go.
All right. So before you ask me a question that I'm assuming what you hinted at, you're going to ask me a question along those lines. You're going to have to bring more clarity to me and the audience. So explain again, so I can answer it to the best of my ability, and so the viewers out there can understand it more clearly, because it's not something we come across every day, Doug.
No, it definitely is not. So again, what you're doing is that whatever number of games, and I happened to choose 81 because it was the halfway point of the season. That's why I have done this exercise. So how you get to that? You take the number of runs scored, okay? You divide it by the total. So you take runs scored and runs allowed, which gives you a different total. And so for example, to make this easier, one team scores 300 runs, and then the total of runs scored and runs allowed is 700. So you divide 300 into 700.
Okay.
And then you have that number, and then you divide it by 81 games.
Okay.
And that gives you a percentage. So in this case, at 3-4 would be 421 would be the 0.421 would be the percentage, and then you take that number, and then you multiply it times 81.
Okay.
And then so that's what your figure is. And that's what what it should be based on that. And then so you have the percentage, and then you take what their actual record is, and then you compare it to with the other. And pretty much this was originally designed to have a difference of 5 for a season. So basically, I look at it as to say it's either 2 to 3 games difference, primarily 3.
Yeah, and it's a good time to look at it. There's an ample sample size, and it's interesting, Doug, because I never really read into that. And there you go, folks. Not only are we trying to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday, Doug just made me a smarter sports bettor today than I was yesterday. So let me get this right. So if, for example, the Pittsburgh Pirates have scored 300 runs this year, and they've allowed, and the average total in their games are 700 runs total. Is that right?
Oh, right.
Combine them and their opponents. And that's with Pittsburgh in all Pittsburgh games, them and their opponents. Okay, so you take that number, that's 421. You multiply that by 81 games, right?
Right. No, so you take the 300, you divide it into the larger number.
Okay.
700. And so that, so in this case, it would be your number would come out to be 0.421. Okay, if that were the case. Because that's it, 3 divided by 7 is 0.421. I mean, that's just so for 3. I'm sorry, 3 divided by 7. So you have that, and so then you take that number and you divide it by 81 games.
Okay, 80
divided by 81. So then you come up so that comes up to a percentage. Okay, from that standpoint, and then you compare it to their actual record. We're not discussing records per se at the moment. So that just brings another number that obviously could make it more confusing. And that's the last thing I want to do in talking about this is make it confusing. Have
you ever written an article on this?
Yes, I have actually. I've written several.
And work is in off the top of your head. You don't know where
It's been a
you're
long.
finding
It's
it?
probably been 7 or 8 years. So I mean,
Yeah,
I wrote because I annually used to write this
yeah.
at different places that I had, but it's been a long time since I've done that.
I
One thing
like.
I can do though, let me tell you, I'll do this. I will, if not today, tomorrow morning for sure, is that I will put how this works. I'll write out the whole thing and I'll put it in the comment section. How about that?
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great because I still, have to wrap my head around it a little
Right,
bit.
right. No, I understand. Yeah,
And
but
I
I'll put
consider
it right in
myself a
there.
pretty intelligent guy, but you explained it as best you could, and it's not a simple formula. So we'll go
No,
from
it is
there.
not.
But I could tell you this: it makes a lot of sense. So, having said that, what's your question?
Okay, so my question to you is this. So Tampa Bay and Atlanta were both 54 and 27, okay,
Okay.
at after 81 games. So that puts them on a pace right now, then that's the case to win 108 games on the season. Now, in each case for this exact formula, Tampa Bay has exceeded their win total has exceeded the formula by 6 games, and Atlanta has exceeded it by 7 games.
Yeah.
Okay, so in each case, so fact or fiction, will Tampa Bay and Atlanta reach 108 wins on the season? So basically duplicate their first half, or will they fall below it?
I would say this. I like Atlanta's chances to do it a lot better than Tampa Bay. And why I say that is because you take away that great start that Tampa Bay has had and their phenomenal home record, which I find it hard to believe they're going to be able to continue to win at that high of a percentage. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to have a good record at home. That's not what I'm implying. I'm implying, what are they, something stupid like 34 and 10 at home or something like that, Doug? Okay. There's no way that you're going to play 760 baseball at home the rest of the way. So right there alone, and they've proven that they're just above average on the road. Atlanta, if you look at their record, it's pretty. They started out real good on the road and suspect at home, but that's pretty much leveled off. And to me, that's a sign of a really, really good team. So I mean, I hope I'm answering this correctly, because I can't put them both in the same category because I think Atlanta has a good opportunity to win 108 games. I don't think Tampa Bay does. And another reason being is Tampa Bay plays, in my estimation, in a tougher division top to bottom. So hopefully that answers your question to your satisfaction.
Oh
Your
yeah, so you're saying fiction, okay, to that, and I agree with you, and pretty much everything you just said. I think Tampa Bay is less likely. I'll throw in to what you just said that their bullpen to me has become somewhat suspect, particularly those guys that have been coming in the sixth, seventh, and eighth innings, okay, of various games. That's where they've gotten into trouble. Atlanta, I'm not, I mean, 108 wins is still a lot of wins,
yeah,
okay, from that standpoint. But here's the thing is that Atlanta has basically 2 or 3 starting pitchers that are not completely healthy.
yeah,
And
so
so these guys come back
yeah.
and you can take some of these other guys and add to your bullpen depth. Boy, if that happens, then I think they become a legitimate chance to reach 108. What I say that it's a fact, I would lean not. Okay, 108 still a lot of games to win
Yeah.
from that standpoint, and especially if they end up building a lead where they want to just rest some players, do some different things in late September for a while. That's a different deal. From that standpoint, and there's no way that you can account for that on July the 3rd from that
Yeah,
standpoint.
yeah,
So yeah.
and I get it. It's that if you go through the annals of baseball history, Major League Baseball history, that is, you'll be hard pressed to get more than, I don't know, 15 teams that have accomplished that feat of 108 wins or more. So it's not an easy accomplishment, but I guess I answered that unfairly, Doug, and I apologize if I did. I mean, if you put me in a corner and says, could both of them do it? I would say fiction. If you're asking me, would either one of them continue at this pace to win 108 games or more? My answer was more in line with, I believe Atlanta has a more realistic opportunity to do so than Tampa Bay. Is that fair?
I think you made that clear. That
Okay.
I think you did.
All right. Yep. Very good. Now I got a question for you.
I'm ready.
All right. I'm looking through the NFL futures for this year. And those of you who've been following our podcast know that we've been covering the NFL. We've already covered the NFC West, the NFC North and the NFC East so far. This week we'll be covering the NFC South and the NFC West. But having said that, I got a question for a team out of the AFC West. I'm scanning through all the regular season win-loss projections. And then I look at chances to make the playoffs before the season begins. And per FanDuel, the LA Chargers at minus 115 to make the playoffs are a good bet, fact or fiction?
I still think it's a good bet. So I'll go with fact. I'm not crazy about the coach. For one thing, I think that I don't know. I think he gives away as many games as what he wins by being aggressive. I think he costs his team those the same amount. So I think it's neutral. But if he wasn't costing his team, that would be additional wins. Okay, so from that standpoint, so that being the case, I will go with that. To be honest with you, I have only looked at a few teams so far in the NFL. I usually get started after the 4th of July, okay, and starting to start looking at this stuff stronger and formulate ideas. So with that being the case, I really don't know their schedule, to be perfectly honest. But based on how I think that's going to play out, I don't think that. What is their season? What is their season win total? Was it 8.5 or was it 9?
No, 9.5, I believe.
9.5. Okay,
yeah.
All right. So,
so don't quote me on that. I think I'm correct, though.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't see anything with the Raiders. Okay, from that standpoint, I don't see them. Denver might be better. They probably will. Because of Sean Payton, they'll be better. But beyond that, so I'm not. I can see at least 3-1 there. I think they'll have a legitimate chance to split with Kansas City. Okay, so to go 4-2 in the division. So if that's the case, I think this team can certainly get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean the AFC is loaded. I get that, but you mentioned the head coach, and his name escapes me off the top of my head. But the guy, he cost them a playoff berth with the chances he takes. Look, I'm all for analytics and going for it in certain situations and not being too conservative. But when you're when you're 4th and 1 on your own 21-yard line in the fourth quarter and you're up 4 points in the game, there's no reason to go for it. Other than the fact you're telling your defense, we don't believe you could stop them. Now, you can go to the analytics and say, well, 71% of the time they make it, and the other 29% when they don't, it only results in 3 points or less X amount of times. I get all that, okay? But at the end of the day, football is football. And you have to, your calculated risks you have to be looking at the score of the game and the time of the game when you make those calculated risks. I get it if you're up more than one score and you're trying to run out the clock. Even then, I would question it. I certainly get it if you're behind more than one score and you go for it. Because what do you have to lose at that point? But I don't know. I think they will be able to win on a consistent basis this year in spite of him. How's that? So
there we go.
Yeah, there you go. I think they're a great bet at minus 115 to make the playoffs. But again, we're making these projections in early July. All right, Doug, time to get to our Major League Baseball free picks. You got a good one. The Tampa Bay Rays, speaking of the devil, they'll be hosting the Philadelphia Phillies on July the 4th. And that game goes at 4:10 p.m. Eastern time from Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. Home of the Tampa Bay Rays. It'll be Eflin against Nola. Two really good starting pitchers. Take it away, my friend.
All right. So I'm excited about this game just in general from that standpoint. And like I said, some great storylines in this one. Starts with that Philadelphia for most of the season was one of the worst road teams in Major League Baseball. Well, guess what? They've since won 9 in a row. So they're going to come into St. Pete's, okay, on a 9-game winning streak, and their record has improved to 22-23. On the flip side, as Ross mentioned earlier, Tampa Bay has been absolutely dominant, and for them, almost the entire first half of the season, they were running 80% or higher in terms of a win percentage, and only recently fell all the way down to 77% to be 34-10. Starting pitching matchup, as he just also, and Ross also mentioned, two former teammates, Aaron Nola and Zach Eflin. Okay, Nola comes in 7-5 with a 4.51 ERA, and he has been especially vulnerable to the long ball, giving up 17, which is tied for 11th in Major League Baseball. In particular, he has struggled on the road. He surrendered of those 17, 11 of them have come on the road, and the batting average against is 45 points higher on the road compared to at home. Now, Eflin, he has absolutely thrived in his new surroundings, okay, playing in Tropicana Field. He's got a 9-3 record with a 3.39 ERA, but at home, he's made 8 starts. He's 8-0 with a 2.17 ERA and a WHIP below 1. Okay, it's actually below 0.90. He has also, though, benefited from playing with the number 2 scoring team in Major League Baseball at home in Tampa Bay, who is averaging 5.9 runs per game. In truth, Eflin is actually the same pitcher he was in Philadelphia, because on the road, his ERA is 4.65. So that's about what we're used to seeing from him. Now, as Ross mentioned, Tampa Bay 140 favorite. In spite of the Phillies having won 6 straight against American League teams on the road, if you look when they play against an American League team on the road, if they have a winning record, they are 20-42. Okay, keep that in mind.
Over what course of time, Doug?
I did over their last 62 games. Okay. Specifically, I don't have the the exact date on that. Yes. And then while the Rays 21-7 at home off 2 consecutive losses, which they just suffered at Seattle, they're 24-5 at home against National League teams. And toss in the fact that in Eflin's career, he when he's pitched at home, the teams he's played for are 27-7, when the total is 7 to 8.5, and currently it's sitting at 7.5. I'm going to back the Rays to give the Phillies a devil of a time against Tampa Bay on Tuesday.
Always doing a play on words, my friend. So you're going to give, you're going to go with who? Philadelphia, you said, correct?
No, I said Tampa Bay minus the 140. Right.
Tampa Bay minus 140. Yeah, I like everything you said. And let me ask you guys out there this. How many of you out there, if I would have told you before the season began, at the exact halfway point of the season, that Zach Eflin would have better numbers than Aaron Nola? And if you raise your hand, put it down, because you're lying like a sieve. Anyway, I agree with that pick. The Phillies are playing better baseball. They came out, like Doug said, weren't very good on the road, but they've strung together 9 in a row. But Tampa Bay at home right now, actually, this is a cheap price to get him at home, even at minus 140. And yeah, Nola's been up and down this year. He lacks the consistency I've seen in years past. And also, I think he's on the downside of his career. He's still a very good starting pitcher. He's still a guy that could probably throw a couple games in the playoffs and throw some gems and give you an excellent opportunity to win. But through the course of the season so far, he lacks confidence for me to take him, especially if he's a favorite at home. So anyway, let me look at my game. It's the Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers, 2 teams that are close to Doug's heart, because he comes from that neck of the woods. Originally, he comes from the Windy City, and he brags about the 115-degree weather. He forgets about us all up north. That's the kind of guy he is. Anyway, Milwaukee is a minus 125 money line favorite. The total in this game is 9. I'll make this as quick as possible, folks, because we're running short on time. Hendricks gets a start for the Chicago Cubs. He's been good during the day. 3 starts during the day. The Cubs are 3-0 in those starts, and his 1.40 ERA and 0.62 WHIP have a lot to do with that. And also a very important note, he averaged 6.4 innings pitched per start in those 3 outings during the day. He's also 3-1 in his team starts in his last 4 with an excellent 2.05 ERA and a very impressive 0.68 WHIP. And he's averaging 6.6 innings pitched per start over those last 4. So not only is Kyle Hendricks putting up some stellar numbers, he's also giving you length and shortening the risk of your bullpen being involved. But you know what? The Cubs bullpen, say what you will, over the last 7 games, they've been lights out. A 1.33 ERA and 0.93 WHIP as a staff. That's getting it done, folks. The Cubs 17-5 to the under this year on the road when they're facing a National League team with a team batting average of 255 or less. And the Milwaukee Brewers would certainly qualify in that regard. They're one of the lowest scoring teams in baseball and one of the lightest hitting teams in baseball. Wade Miley gets a start for the Brewers. Last 3, great form, 1.20 ERA, 0.67 WHIP. Milwaukee 12-2 to the under this year at home, when the total is 9 to 9.5, which means they're usually facing a subpar pitcher in those situations, and they still can't hit. So I'm going under the total of 9. The Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers under 9. What do you got, Doug?
I'm going to go with you on that one. Hendricks has been very good, as you mentioned. And the thing is, the thing I've noticed, I got to make this quick. The thing that I've noticed why he's better this year is that he's getting more bite on his changeup. There's more sink to it this year than what there's been actually the last 2 years. So that's been a big difference. Both Cubs bullpen, ironically enough, as good as it's pitched, and it's pitched this well for a month, is that their actual record is 6-18. Yeah. I think that's remarkable, from that standpoint. So anyways, so they have that. So yeah, I'm going to go with you on the under on that one as well, Ross.
Yeah. And again, Doug brought up a long-term streak with their bullpen and such. And that's why I always say, folks, don't get too caught up with the overall number of a bullpen, for example, their performance line. Look how they've done recently. And then if they have real good numbers, look who they've done it against. Okay, because let's put it this way. If their last 7 games were against, and I don't mean to pick on anybody or show disrespect, if their last 7 games was against the Kansas City Royals and who else is very bad this year, the Oakland A's, you almost have to make that a moot point. But there you have it. Doug likes the Tampa Bay Rays, minus 140. Over them, their Philadelphia Phillies, and Ross Benjamin, the Cubs in Milwaukee, under the total of 9. Doug, we got 3 minutes. Tell the folks what you got going on.
Well, I'm going to make it really simple because Ross knows this. This is my last show until a week from Thursday because I'm going on vacation. I will still have picks for sale at the site, so I'll have all those things. So I'm just going to say real quick is that tonight I have a CFL game. I'm 3-0 so far this year, 6-1 dating back to last year. So if you're interested, I got a side on the CFL game, Canadian football. I have that, but instead I'm going to take my time. I'm going to turn it to my friend Ross Benjamin and let him pontificate how well he has been doing across the board.
See, now you're no longer part of the show. You're starting to expand your vocabulary, and I'm very easily confused. And anyway, thank you, Doug. The CFL, folks, again, I said it with Jesse when he did his promo and how good he's doing in the CFL. Same thing with Doug. I don't like the CFL. I don't even know where to watch it. I have no idea what that game's about. Who cares? Sports betting is about winning. And if somebody wins for you, pick the paper up or turn your phone on the next day and find out the final score and make some money. So Doug Upstone over at DocSports.com. Before I get my websites, rbwins.com, before I go on and on about myself, I want to just make sure you folks know, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. There's no strings attached. There's no hidden agenda. You'll see that WC logo there on the bottom right-hand corner of the video. If you hover over that, a subscribe button will come up. Why we just don't have a subscribe button up yet, I don't know. I got to talk to my guys, Jim and Seth, in the office, and we'll get that straightened out for you, because I know a couple of people have mentioned that to us, and it certainly makes sense to me. So it's just an oversight on our part, and I'll make sure it gets done very shortly, folks. In any event, you can find me at rbwins.com off a 2-in-1 day in Major League Baseball. I got 3 picks on Monday. If indeed you see the video on Monday, 3 picks up for sale right now in Major League Baseball on Monday. I have a lot more on Tuesday, July the 4th. Doug, I hope you have a fantastic vacation. Enjoy yourself. Get the mind rested, and we'll be ready to reconvene in a couple weeks, my friend.
That sounds good. I'm looking forward to that already. With 10 days we're talking about. So, yeah, I'll be ready to go then. Whether we're talking football, we're talking baseball, I'm ready to go, Ross. You know that.
I know that as well, and you guys should know that as well. Doug's been part of the channel here for over 2 years, and he comes well prepared. He wins consistently, and he's a wealth of knowledge, as we just witnessed today. Until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care and God bless, folks.